This is the Real JL Mosman podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever, wherever you are listening to this podcast. I am your host, JL Mosman. Thank you for joining me. You can join the conversation by heading to my website, jlmosman.net. There you'll find articles, my archives for my podcast, and my live show. You will also find links to all my social media, including my Twitter, which is at @real_JL Mosman. Don't forget to hashtag get real when you talk about issues that you hear on this podcast. You can also find me at Facebook at Real JL Mosman, and I am also on Instagram, Real JL Mosman, all one word. I am on as well Pinterest, so different social media you can find me on, and all those links you can find at my website. I have a great program for you, and this podcast is going to be formatted just a little bit different than normally. You know, I took a 2-month break from doing my other show, Theologically Speaking, which I must say this up ahead of time. We'll be back May 22nd with a new format. But it's been 3 weeks, almost a month since I did my last podcast for you, and I just had to take some time to kind of readjust some things in my life. I had to readjust what I wanted to do for the website and the podcast. And of course I was having some health issues to deal with. So the way we're going to be organizing this podcast is we're going to be doing 5 different sections. There's 5 different segments, if you will, in the program, and each segment is different. I will be doing a religion segment, which will cover a variety of issues from atheism to Christianity to other religions. I'll be doing a cultural and politics sort of section. Of course, my politics are not completely about like, okay, well, you know, is Trump going to get this delegate, blah, blah, blah. But there's going to be some politics. And so sometimes I will put them together and sometimes I'll separate them. It just so happens that in this podcast I'll be separating them. Also, from time to time, we'll be talking about sports. I want to start talking more about sports. It's something else that I'm interested in. And we'll be talking about entertainment. We'll be doing our reviews. I'll give you my breakdown, spoiler-free, of what I felt or my thoughts on Captain America: Civil War. We'll go over that later. And then we'll kind of have like a main story. So I thought that for my main story segment, we'd go into the cultural and society segment and be talking about Caitlyn Jenner. Now, I don't know if you've heard the news, but Caitlyn Jenner, supposedly, according to a biographer, is really regretting transitioning into a woman and has been talking, according to sources, about getting back to being a man. Now, you can find a full article on this that I wrote at jlmosman.net. The article is entitled Jenner Wants to Be a Man, again, according to author. Now, I also posted on my website another shorter, briefer article we'll talk about called Caitlyn Jenner, Prime Example of Why We Can't Make Laws for Transgenders. We'll go into that as well. That will all be part of it. Among some of the things this writer says, he thinks his motivation apparently is the fact that Jenner is a Christian and apparently believes in sin and is still attracted to women and understands that lesbianism is a sin. So I just don't understand how you can, if you think lesbianism is a sin, and yet not changing your gender is. And I don't know. To me, they kind of seem hand in hand, right? But you could probably see someone like him making that claim. Whatever. We'll go into that in our main story segment. And then, like I said, we have our political segment. Ted Cruz blames Fox News for Donald Trump's rise. We'll go into that story for you, as well as this whole little fight that seems to keep on getting worse between the NeverTrumps and the alt-right. I'll give you kind of some perspective on what that little fight is about and what it's doing to the, not just the Republican Party, but also to conservatism. In our tech section, we're going to be talking about police in Belgium warning people not to use Facebook's reactions. We'll cover that story. And, well, of course, Facebook is sitting down, its creator, Mark Zuckerberg, is sitting down with conservatives to prove to them there is no bias when it comes to how they deal with some of the, what would you call it, wall-to-wall, you know, what you see on your wall, or what you see on your news stream. You know, people have been accusing Facebook of editing and censoring certain conservative sites. We'll go into that. And finally, in our religion segment, we'll be talking about an Israeli man filing a restraining order against God. I'm not kidding you. A man in Israel has filed a restraining order against God. I'll tell you whether or not he got it or not. And then we'll be talking about stewardship in our in-depth series. You know, I always try to do in my podcast an in-depth story. And for the first couple of ones, the kind of conversation was about language. And I'll always continue that kind of thing, because I think learning about language and talking about language and learning skills to interpret and perceive things correctly and observe them to what they're being is critical. But in this in-depth series that we're going to be doing in this podcast, we'll be talking about stewardship, what it is, and I have a post on my website talking about that as well. While we're talking about the website, I've been doing a lot of work on it, so I'm very proud of it. So if you ever go to my website, it's been improved. Now, you'll see at the top, you'll see little tabs you can scroll down. There's the read section, and you can see my published articles. I got a link up there for, finally, some people have been asking me about an article that I wrote for Higher Things back in March about Easter. And then I have my blog, which is just kind of like the whole, everything that I write. I mean, so it's kind of just, if you're just looking to go from recently posted to the oldest stuff, you go there. Topics, I try to break down some of the topics for you. I have a sermon of the week, which this week is my friend Pastor Sam Schultheis from Huntington Beach, California. So you can see that there. You can see the listen and watch tab. You can get access to the podcast archives. My live YouTube show coming back on May 22nd. And my YouTube channel for all the other videos I've done, including my old live program, John Mosman Live. There's the share and join conversation. There you can get links to my Facebook and Twitter. You can also find a gallery. And I also have a donate page there. Now you click that, it will take you to a link for GoFundMe. And you can actually go there and support this program that way. Funds that are raised on that go towards the program, go towards the website. But most of it goes towards my two programs for getting better equipment, getting better stuff to make a better show. And it helps me also share it. So if you like what I'm saying, if you like what this podcast is about, please, I already thank you for listening. If you can give, even if it's $1, I'm appreciative, you know. So you'll also see there's a sports section. Like I said, I'm going to be improving on that, creating more stuff on that. as it goes. It's going to be a little slow going, but I'm really happy with the site, and I recommend that you go check it out and get your look into what that's all about. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Real J.L. Mosman podcast. Talking about Caitlyn Jenner. I wrote an article talking about Caitlyn Jenner being a prime example of why we can't make laws for transgenders. Now, Caitlyn Jenner's supposed regret, if it comes true, is at a great time. After hearing all the reasons folks on the left, from Bruce Springsteen and now to our president, Barack Obama, have for advocating sexually and gender-confused people to allow them to use whatever bathroom they want, it's caused a problem. The former Olympic athlete and reality star, Jenner, supposedly has a desire to be a man again. And this just hits home to the reality of the issue that we face. Now, for those who don't know, apparently there's a biographer who has come out and said that Caitlyn Jenner wants to be a man again. I kid you not. I wrote an article about this as well on my website. I detail everything that we know so far. I'll start that off with it. It's been this. It's been a year since Caitlyn Jenner came out as a woman. Caitlyn Jenner's transition from Bruce has been the most high-profile the world has ever seen. From the dramatic television interview with Diane Sawyer, in which Jenner revealed herself, quote-unquote, herself, for the first time as a woman. And then with the series of appearances, including a Vanity magazine cover, Jenner has been positioned and hailed as an inspirational figure. Billions now know that Bruce is now Caitlyn. And this has been a huge moment for the transgender community. And it has been. It has been so much a huge thing for them. We knew that transgenders were out there. We knew that they had issues. We knew they had legitimate issues. And we knew there were a lot of people out there who were coming up and creating crazy ideas like gender fluid and all that. Okay? But there's no doubt in my mind that Caitlyn Jenner opens the door wide with her little transformation. Her little movement from realizing that she's no longer a man but now a woman. Jenner brought it out in the forefront. And because the media gave it such accolades and praised her and made her Woman of the Year, and the idea that she may now want to be a man again, that after a year she has regrets, especially because she's attracted to women, and she knows what the Bible says about homosexuality, she knows what the Bible says about these things. Well, what does the Bible say about transgender? And of course, we know that the Bible doesn't really say anything about transgender, but I'm telling you this. I'm pretty sure that if God doesn't want you to lay with another person of your sex, I'm pretty sure God doesn't want you to chop off your Johnson and call yourself a woman. Now, this comes at an interesting time when Obama issues school rules on gender bathroom access. And after the explosion of the debate that we had with the North Carolina bill and the recent news of all the celebrities coming out and like they did, like Bruce Springsteen, Kardashian family biographer Ian Halpern claims that Caitlyn is experiencing regret over transitioning from male to female. Citing multiple sources close to the star, Halpern told the Wrap that Jenner is considering transitioning back to male in the next couple of years. Halpern also said that one source confirmed to me Caitlyn has made whispers of sex change regret, hinting that she might want to go back to being a Bruce Jenner. Halpern said that while doing research for his book, The Kardashian Dynasty, The Controversial Rise of America's Royal Family, several sources indicated Jenner is unhappy. According to Halpern, Jenner wants to find love and believes that it would be sinful to have same-sex relationships. And she had apparently talked about this in Vanity when she said, "What do I do? What did I just do to myself?" Of course, the 66-year-old former athlete's rep denied that the author's claims are legit in an email sent out to multiple media sources. Although Jenner might not have sex change regret at present, the former decathlon did tell Vanity Fair that there was an initial shock during the recovery. We also have been told that there's a lot of pressure for Caitlyn to cut off the Johnson, to cut off the male parts, to finally get on there. Halpern says that one source close to the family said that Jenner has to, quote, piss or get off the toilet. The claim of Jenner's sex change regret comes after it was reported last week that Jenner is to be featured on a cover of Sports Illustrated wearing nothing but American flag and the Olympic medal she won as a Bruce. One thing is for sure, this mess of Jenner's story impacts the credibility of a movement that might want consideration to being normal. That's out of my Jenner wants to be a man again article. Going to my other article, continuing with that, I say, the problem is not that whether transgender people should use the bathroom. They do, I'm sure, and sometimes we probably don't even know it. But let's face facts. What defines a transgendered person is so up in the air. Is it just a man being able to wear a dress and put on a wig? Because that's the case for Caitlyn Jenner. Could we even say Caitlyn Jenner really made the full-on transition? But again, this has nothing to do with bathrooms and supposed rights. Because we know that Obama is pushing this in schools, which is just terrible. Not only because the guy likes to use executive orders, which is unconstitutional, I might add, but the idea that he wants to mandate something that affects a real minority of people, a very small segment of the population. It's ridiculous. This goes back to ratifying and promoting a lifestyle that promotes people to not only that people rarely that not many people live but rarely deal with or agree with. And it's part of a dangerous pattern we see forming in our society. Now, I hate to break it to you, but the whole Jenner situation is a prime example, folks, that when you're making laws around people who cannot decide whether they're male or female, or are given some kind of special privilege to decide whether they're going to be one or not, that's problematic. I hate to say it. No one wants to say this, but it's the truth. Caitlyn Jenner's whole story has helped to completely put this out there. And if Caitlyn Jenner ends up becoming a man again, if he ever stopped being a man, the implications to what this might mean to the transgender community, I think, is huge. Why don't you tell me what you think? You can find me on Twitter at real_JLMosman, hashtag get real. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is JL Mosman. We'll be right back in just a minute, but take this time during the break to get your pen and paper out, or if you're on the computer on your smartphone, to put this down and save it as a note. If you go to jlmosman.net, jlmosman.net, you can find links to all my articles, my podcast archives, my live show links, everything. You will also find a donate page. Click at top underneath share and join the conversation. By going there and donating, you're helping this program. If you believe in what I do, or if you at least want to see an alternative media voice out there from a moderate conservative Lutheran, then please consider donating. Well, I appreciate your support, and very few times will I ask for your donations, but I appreciate it. We'll be back with your regularly scheduled podcast in just a moment. Don't forget, jlmosman.net. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Real J.L. Mosman podcast. Had a great segment. Last segment we talked about Caitlyn Jenner. Remember, you can find articles, show notes, everything you need at my website. When I put this stuff out there, I'll have a link to, of course, the blog and anything I talk about or source information from on news stories, just to let you know. Okay, so we're heading back to our next topic, which happens to be politics. Okay, I try to be careful when I go into the muddy waters of politics, just for the fact that some of it I'm not interested in. Some of it I am. I know that might seem contradictory, but it's my podcast, and it's my party, and I can do what I want to. No, I just joke. But here, I do pick out certain stories I think have an interesting point of view. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, but Ted Cruz is blaming Fox News for the rise of Donald Trump. It's true. According to Fox News, according to reports that he blames Fox News, I found this article on Huffington Post. It is by a Marina Fang, associate politics editor. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, on Thursday suggested that Fox News had a role to play in facilitating the presumptive GOP presidential nominee, Donald Trump, success, and warned that if it would bear responsibility going forward. the former presidential candidate was asked on the conservative radio show in Houston whether he felt he was treated unfairly by the Fox News or other media. After he slammed the network's executive earlier this month for turning it into the Donald Trump network 24/7. Well, listen, there's time for recriminations. Everyone who is responsible for the rise of Donald Trump, they will bear that responsibility going forward, he said. But there'll be more than a few players who played disproportionate roles for that rise, he added, refusing to pin the blame solely on the cable news network. Before he dropped out of the GOP presidential race last week, clearing the way for Trump to become the presumptive nominee, the Texas senator suggested that the executives at Fox News gave Trump wall-to-wall coverage, which led to the support of his candidacy. There is a broader dynamic at work, which is the network executives have made a decision to get behind Donald Trump. Robert Murdoch and Roger Ailes at Fox News have turned Fox News into the Donald Trump network, Cruz said at a press conference. Media executives are trying to convince Hoosiers, trying to convince Americans the race is decided. You have no choice. You are stuck between Trump or Hillary Clinton. Either one of those is a horrific choice for the country, Cruz said. So here we go, and there's more into this, and you can find the link when on my website for it. But okay. Cruz, I think he's just showing himself to be a poor loser. And so have the rest of the NeverTrumps and all the other Republican conservatives supporting Cruz. And I'll tell you one reason why. A big part of Ted Cruz's failure, it really comes down to the fact that Ted Cruz he really didn't get, I mean, he was a presence on Twitter, but not nearly as much as Trump was. Trump knew what he was doing. Trump did a good job of getting stories twisted around. He was great at branding people like Lying Ted. I think the Lying Ted branding that Trump put on Cruz was huge. And I don't think Cruz was ever really able to shake that. And I think Trump learned that the way to win in politics in this country now is by branding your candidate, your opponent candidate, something that he may or may not be. The Democrats did it in 2008, and it worked. And it worked. They did it in 2012. They did it with Mitt Romney. You had people out there supporting this brand that Mitt Romney was, number 19, Mr. Number 1955, Mr. 1955, who believes that women should still be in the kitchen and doesn't believe in a woman's right to choose. Even though Mitt Romney has been on the record of being for pro-choice, even though he was anti-abortion. In fact, Mitt Romney has been to this day, probably outside of now Trump, the most pro-choice Republican candidate in recent years and going for president. But Trump learned that lesson. And Cruz, to me, is kind of still doing what a lot of Republicans are doing. Thinking that for a lot of people, this election means policy. Although, if the Republicans really wanted a policy guy, as they try to say Cruz is, and I'm not saying that he didn't have some good ideas, I'm not saying that he didn't have some great policies. But let's just face facts. Ted Cruz was not your policy guy. He had those policies, but I'm saying he wasn't your guy to advocate those policies. He might have supported them, but not to be able to really flesh them out and talk about him in an election. The best people they had for that was Rand Paul. So the reality is that, Ted Cruz was making some ground. And I don't think he wants to take responsibility for the fact, and then they're the same people that blamed Trump for not taking responsibility in Colorado. Now, whether or not Fox News really helped Trump or not, that could be seen. I do think, though, that the majority of the media in America helped Trump. They gave him free publicity. He had to spend, and everybody knows that in the end, what really helps a campaign out, besides the branding, is your war chest. And not only does Trump have the biggest war chest this year, he also was the smartest one about how he spent it. You think about the bulk of what Trump has done about getting his message out there. What have they been? They've been him getting it out on Twitter and using that tool successfully, and then allowing the media to just take it over. People went to Trump's Twitter page just to call him out. And you know what? You're going to get people who don't like Trump. They're going to respond. You get your trolls, obviously. You're going to get people that dislike his stuff, but then you're going to also get people who do like it. And if you get certain people, i.e. certain Republican primary voters, to Trump's Twitter account, they're going to see a lot of what he says, outside of the framing of what Cruz might say he says, or what the different conservative groups and news outlets like the Blaze and the Dana Loesch's and the Glenn Becks have to say about him. He makes fair points. But to just unilaterally just blame Cruz, for Cruz to blame Fox News for Donald Trump, I think that's just a little disingenuous, and I think it's a failure of not seeing where he failed as a candidate. And the fact that most people I know who looked at Trump, or excuse me, looked at Ted Cruz, kind of got this, he looks like a used snake oilsman. He's got that cheesy kind of Texas businessman. I'm going to kind of, I don't know. It just kind of has he just puts you off. But as a popular YouTube video maker said on his Twitter account, I can't stand the guy, but he's making all the good points. And that leads me to the next segment of my politics, which is this war between the NeverTrumps and the alt-right. And people on the NeverTrump side, the people who are on the Blaze side, people like Glenn Beck, people especially like Dana Loesch, they can't see when someone from the alt-right makes a good point. And to deny the fact that people on the alt-right are actually making really good points, like Milo Yiannopoulos, I don't agree with what he says, but he makes really good points. One of the points that one of the Trump supporters who was at CNN, I think her name is Kayleigh McKenna or something like that, she was talking about the fact that people on the NeverTrump side who are really pushing down on the fact that Trump's not conservative, where were they with Mitt Romney? That has preempted Dana Loesch to go into a very personal attack on that lady. and said, "Well, we still didn't support Mitt Romney," and that I think that's true. But I think you can say for the majority of the Republican and conservative movement, everyone got behind Mitt Romney. Everyone did. We have not seen the party react to Romney or any other candidate like they have against Trump. And part of that has maybe to do with some of the politics and maybe the way that Trump positions himself. But I think the real issue here is that Trump is a wild card, and they don't know how to really categorize him. He defies categorization. And political ideologues, whether they be on the right or whether they be on the left, they don't like that. But I'll tell you, this war between the NeverTrumpers and the alt-right has got to end. People like Matt Walsh, who just can't let a frickin' bone go. They gotta let it go. And I understand where they're coming from with some of their ideas and some of their criticisms of the alt-right and the Trump movement, about whether you can legitimately call them conservative, of whether or not they're consecutively conservative. But I can say the same thing for the social conservative movement. I am currently right now writing a post that's going to be on my blog about the fact that I've left social conservatism. I've left it. And it's not because I don't have values that are similar to the social conservative. It's kind of similar to the libertarian movement. Although I got to admit, I'm feeling closer to the alt-right and the libertarian movement right now than I do the social conservative. And I explain that, and I will explain that in my post, and I can maybe later time at my next podcast. But I can say this. Both of them make great points, but there are some fatal errors that happen. And one of the things that I'm finding myself problematic is, you know, if the social conservative side, if the Glenn Becks, if the Blaze and the Matt Walsh just want to go out there and talk about the fact about being really conservative, then we need to address the fact that conservatives who are supposedly supposed to be for smaller government usually want to involve the government when it comes to their moral victories, their moral choices. They don't want government involved when it comes to supporting some of the gay marriage stuff, but then they want the government to be around and not support it. And I just find all of this terribly just annoying. But make no bones about it, the alt-right and the NeverTrumpers fight. It's destroyed the Republican Party, and it's destroyed the conservative movement in America. And conservative politics right now, if Trump wins, it's not because of conservatism, and it's not because of the Republican Party. It's because there will be enough people in this country who see that A, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, either one of them, is the worst option. We'll be doing what we've always done, voting for the lesser evil. And things just will never change. But I'll tell you this, come 4 years from now, the Republican conservative movements are going to be all but gone as they are now, today. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Alright, back like a heart attack. So we talked about politics. We talked about Caitlyn Jenner. I don't know, I feel like putting an accent to it, right? If she can be a woman, I can be an Irishman, or a Scot, or an Australian, or whatever my accent I'm trying to do. Alright, so we talked about politics, and we talked about Caitlyn Jenner. Now let's go into our technology section. And Belgian police are warning people to not use the reactions, the little way you can go on Facebook and give like the 6 different reactions to someone's post. They're warning people not to do it, and the reason why is because of the advertising. Now, I did do an article on this on my website. You can go into that. They're warning that, they're saying that Facebook is using that and trying to profile advertising to how you react to certain news. So if you don't like someone saying, hey, George Bush is a nut job, if you don't like someone saying that, then they're going to probably suggest that maybe you don't like nuts or something. And what I mean, there's just all kinds of different ideas, but this is nothing new. Facebook has always looked at altering different things, looking at the centering of how people see things, and trying to not only give them certain advertising, but are also affecting what people see and what other people see. And Facebook has been called out about this before in the past. And of course, currently right now, Mark Zuckerberg is going to be entertaining some conservatives, supposedly because he's trying to put out this idea that there's a bias for conservatives. Okay, well, there have been a lot of conservative sites that have said this guy the site has been censoring us, and there's a bias here at Facebook that's not allowing it. Facebook is denying it. Zuckerberg is denying it. The reality is, this is the nature of Facebook, and anyone who goes on Facebook should just kind of expect that this kind of thing is liable to happen, right? It's the same thing with any other privacy thing when it comes to social media. If you're afraid of privacy issues, if you're afraid of being advertised to, then don't get on social media. Don't get on Facebook. That's our technology section here. This is our segment of the show where we kind of just take smaller sections and we don't elaborate as much on them. Now we're going to go to the religion section. A man in Israel apparently doesn't want God to answer his prayers, so he's filed a restraining order. This is on the Huffington Post. The plaintiff, identified as David Shushan, appeared in a courtroom in Haifa, I think that's how you pronounce it, on Tuesday, defending that God stop interfering in his life, according to NRG, an Israeli news source. Shushan told the court that over the last 3 years, God had been very negative towards him. Though the court documents don't detail any specifics, the Times of Israel noted, Shushan said that he has tried numerous times to obtain a restraining order through the police department, but in response only received 10 police visits over a 36-month period. Which, for you, the kids who can't count math, that means 3 years. That's why this time he tried to go through the court instead. Court documents noted that God did not present himself at the hearing. Yeah, but, I mean, did they... I just... I don't even know if you can... This is so ludicrous. Okay, the presiding judge, Sean Canan, threw out the request and called it absurd. Kana, the judge, suggested that he should be that the man Shushan should be helped by someone other than local law and besides local law enforcement, i.e., a psychiatrist, a therapist. it was not immediately clear if God had an attorney. This is just the kind of absurd crap that you just come to find out there in the world, and you got to give yourself a little chuckle. In a world where people are marrying bridges in themselves, what's a little bit more absurdity? If you'd like to read more on the story, you can find that on my Facebook and on my Twitter. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Attention to all of you who listen to this program. You can have your business or organization advertised here. Just means that I will give you a little blurb on my program. Right now, I'm offering it on a free basis. That's right. Free basis. If you don't like how you hear it on the program, doesn't matter. If you like it, doesn't matter. I'm not going to charge you anything. I just want people to know about your excellent services, and maybe somewhere down the road, you might be able to help support this program with your donations. Advertise. And just remember, future listeners, that any advertisement of any organization or business do not necessarily support or endorse the views expressed on this program. Please do not be complete idiots or a-holes and punish them for it. Just support their business and support this podcast. Back to the program in just a minute. Alright, we're back for the final segment of this podcast. Thank you for listening. We're back to the book segment, if you will, our in-depth section, the religious topic, and the issue is going to be on stewardship. Now, I wrote a post on my blog called go into here. I have in my notes. Alright. It is called Why Christians Struggle with Stewardship. I'm going to read that for you now, and we're going to go in depth on this topic of stewardship. Stewardship, one of the most important things that can impact a Christian both in their personal life and the faith, and in their personal faith and the well-being of their churches. Stewardship seems to be one of these alien things that can be so foreign for Christians, and yet we hear about so much. We think we know. It is indeed an interesting situation. Anyone who has been to a church meeting anytime soon knows how much important stewardship is and how it is brought up so frequently and how usually it is so confused. And what people may not know is that it can lead to wrong doctrinal statements. The biggest struggle for Christians, and I'm paraphrasing some of this, I suggest you read the full post, is that there seems to be a debate on what exactly it is and how we use it. It seems that the only thing we all can agree on is that we are called to be good stewards. But what does it mean? If you go searching for the word stewardship, you might be surprised to how very few verses use the word, especially if you're looking in older translations of the Bible. Stewardship is kind of like the Trinity in that way. There may not be a lot of exact words or phrases of it being used in the Bible, but it's all over the place if you read it according to context. Now, I would like to say that stewardship is at the heart of being a Christian. And the reason why we struggle with stewardship is because it's at the heart of the gospel, and Christians struggle with the gospel. And why is it that we confuse both, or we struggle with both? It's the same reason why our main tenet on justification is so confused. It's the old Adam. Now, God gives us both life here in heaven, eternal life, and the life we have here with our family and friends. He gives us talents and a means to earn a wage. He gives us everything we need to live. He gives us faith, and He renews it when we go to church and receive His means of grace. In short, God gives to us first, and that is where we must start with stewardship. If stewardship does not start with God's gifts, then it becomes giving to earn His grace. Stewardship is a joyful response to those gifts, and we think otherwise we're guilty of legalism. To make stewardship something other than starting with God's gifts, to make it an obligational tithe, makes it not stewardship. A part of stewardship is to understand our relationship with God. And the correct Christian understanding of our relationship with God is that we get all things from Him through grace. And that through that, we are equipped to do with what we need. This is so often forgotten in churches. And I'm telling you this now, it's a big problem in churches. The struggle with stewardship is that we forget that God gave first. That our response is first thankfulness and then is sober respect for those gifts. Which means we manage those gifts well. We live according to what we're given. And we give what we can. We give with a free and open, thankful heart that understands that everything comes from God. Because tithing alone is not stewardship. Tithing because we need to fill our budget, or because someone makes us feel bad for not getting them more money, or tithing for any other reason than to be an open, thankful gift, is not good stewardship. It is true that in stewardship we give thanks to God, and we honor the gifts that He's given us with our minds, our hearts, and yes, eventually our pocketbooks. We Christians indeed struggle with stewardship because we struggle with God's grace, and we struggle to understand that it has been given to us without us doing something. It's completely free. All we have to do is receive it. We often try to make stewardship an agenda or fit one, especially in the polity of the church. I, however, would urge to be cautious with how we understand stewardship and how we start promoting it. Because to divorce stewardship from God's grace and His gifts would mean endangering orthodox doctrines about God. It would mean endangering true stewardship. Now, this is going to happen a lot because our old Adam and our sinful nature, which wants to make everything about ourselves. But there's, of course, another way how we struggle with stewardship after we have been given the countless gifts from God. If our reaction when we first start is not to start off with first adoration and thanks, and to feel love and to be so moved that we're giving our gifts, we struggle with giving. We struggle with sharing because the same old Adam that wants to make it about us when we're given something and doesn't want to receive God's free gifts. Our sinful nature hates the idea of sharing because it means we are not alone. It means that we do not get a say. We want to own it. We want to be able to say who is worthy of what, because human nature is always that way. In short, in the end, we can say that many reasons for people to be good stewards have not been good stewards. And we can equally say that part of it's been an understanding problem. But at the heart of the issue is understanding that because God so freely gave to us, we just give what we can out of thankfulness. When stewardship becomes an agenda, when we start talking about stewardship in the way that we talk about anything else, like we do church attendance, like we do whether or not people are getting to worship, we lose it. We lose it. And stewardship is so important to our faith. It's so important how we live our lives as Christians. Because stewardship is an active way we look at the gospel. God gives first. God gives freely. God is so gracious that our only response is that of thankfulness. We don't give because it'll make us better people. We shouldn't give because it's going to be good for our taxes or that we'll be better off for it. We should always give because we're thankful. If more people understood this, everything would be a whole lot better. That's the end of the book segment for you on the final in-depth conversation about stewardship. Because stewardship is important. And if we don't get it right, we fail so many other things. That's been my podcast for you. If you want to know more, go to my website. Thank you to my lovely bride-to-be, Brenda, for the introduction. This is my podcast. Thank you for listening. JLMosman.net. Thank you.